Let's talk about when it comes to the District of Columbia budget. They have been operating under a congressionally approved budget for the past 6 months. However, Republicans say, y'all now got to cut $1 billion midway through the fiscal year. The temporary spending bill, known as a continuing resolution, is designed to prevent a government shutdown by requiring all federal agencies to operate under their 2024 budgets, while DC usually continues operating under its approved fiscal year 2025 budget. This particular proposed budget does not exempt the district. Mayor Muriel Bowser addressed this issue during a news conference, highlighting the disastrous consequences of slashing the city's budget by this much.
We are not a federal agency. We are a city, county, state all at once, and we provide direct services to the people of the District of Columbia, visitors to the District of Columbia, businesses in the District of Columbia, diplomats and visiting heads of state, and everyone who works here in the Congress. Our budget was balanced and approved. And if we go back to fiscal 2024 levels, we would be forced to reduce spending by $1.1 billion in only 6 months. But here is why we're here today, because Congress can fix this. They can fix this $1.1 billion problem that we have brought to their attention in the draft CR. The Congress can add the language back to the continuing resolution, the same language that's been there for the past 2 continuing resolutions that authorize us to spend our locally generated revenue according to our own approved budget and timeline. And I want to emphasize the local part of that statement. The District of Columbia raises and spends its own money, just like every other state. So remember that the budget we're talking about, this budget, the approved FY25 budget, was introduced by me and approved by this council. It focuses on 3 main areas: public safety, public education, and economic growth. Disrupting those investments won't be good for DC or our country.
Folks, joining us now is Robert White. Robert is the At-Large Councilmember in Washington, D.C. Robert, glad to have you here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. The Republicans moments ago passed this continuing resolution, which includes this massive cut. Now the only hope D.C. has is for the Senate to act. Now, of course, Republicans, they need Democrats to go along with this. And so what have y'all in D.C., City Council, what have y'all been saying to Senator Chuck Schumer and Democrats who may very well vote for this CR to ensure the whole government doesn't shut down?
Look, Roland, several of us were on Capitol Hill yesterday knocking on doors trying to meet with members of the House, including the Speaker. Now we're reaching out to senators. And the message we're trying to let them know, because not everybody realizes that even though DC's budget has to go through Congress, this isn't federal money. This is local tax money that we are already spending at fiscal year 25 levels. And so we're trying to make sure they understand the impacts. We are going to have to overnight cut over $1 billion out of our budget. That means there are going to be layoffs from first responders, including police officers, teachers, the folks who pick up our trash. This is going to have a devastating impact on DC. And it's important that members of the Senate stand with us, because guess what? Even though our budget goes through the Senate, we don't have any senators there to fight for us. So DC is at a severe disadvantage, and we don't want to get mixed up in this federal fight. This isn't our fight. This is between federal officials, Congress and the White House, Democrats and Republicans on the national level. We're doing our thing in DC. We're running a city the same way that other folks run a city, and you can't come in midway through the year and say you got to cut $1 billion out of your budget. That doesn't work for us any more than it would work for anyone else in the nation.
And again, I mean, this is what happens, unfortunately, when whoever is in control of Congress, they can control what happens to DC? Typically, when Democrats are in power, that you guys are allowed to run the city as you wish, as the duly elected representatives. But Republicans, they use the power of the purse to force DC to do whatever it is that they want at their own whim.
That's exactly right. But what's important here for Republicans, especially to understand, is that in Republican administrations and Democratic administrations, in Republican Congresses and Democratic Congresses for the past 2 decades, D.C. has been held harmless in these federal budget fights. They've included language to allow us to keep spending in our current fiscal year, since it is D.C. local money. The other thing that's really important for the nation to understand, for the Senate to understand, is that because this is local DC money, this doesn't do anything to the federal budget. You can't reappropriate this for any federal program. So this does nothing for them on the federal side. All it does is hurt DC. And the money is still going to come in because they're not cutting taxes, but it'll be locked in a bank account where we have to make cuts to vital city services for no benefit to the nation, no benefit to the federal government, just chaos in DC for absolutely no reason. That doesn't make any sense.
So when y'all made that point, what do Republicans say?
Most of them, Roland, I'll tell you, didn't seem to know that that was the case, that this language had been omitted, or that it would have this type of impact on D.C. And so the CR that the Republicans passed, the House treats D.C. like an agency, even though we are not an agency. We operate like a state. And folks seem real surprised on the Republican side about how it would impact D.C. Obviously, we still couldn't get them to stand with us, but we are hoping that the Senate will stand with us. And this is the time where D.C. residents and folks who care about democracy and equality have to show up. We're going to be in the Senate tomorrow ahead of the vote, talking to them. And we need D.C. residents there. We need folks around the nation calling senators, telling them you can't treat D.C. like this. Just include the same language that's been in the CRs for the past 20 years.
Questions from my panel. Mustafa, you first.
Yeah, well, Councilman, it's good to see you. You know, we've got all of our brothers and sisters and allies who are here inside of the district who, of course, are going to make sure their voices are heard. What would you like to see folks across the country do to be in solidarity with the actions that you and others will be taking?
Mustafa, I appreciate that question. We need allies. Like anybody else in the struggle, we need allies. So folks across the nation, call your senator. Tell them you heard about what's happening to the District of Columbia. You don't want to see any of your fellow country members treated like this and getting tied up in this national fight. So urge them to vote no on the continuing resolution. Don't include D.C. in this federal nonsense.
I was wondering, and I just want to make things clear, when we do have dignitaries visit, the great area of Washington, D.C., that comes out of our budget, right? Like they don't give us any sort of funding to host these guests that require a lot of manpower.
That's right. When dignitaries visit the inauguration, D.C. residents are shouldering that financial burden. That is our police, our first responders, the same ones that are going to lose their jobs because of this, who are bearing the danger, and our taxpayers who are bearing the cost. Now, we do get some reimbursement for those, but we don't get the full reimbursement. So we are carrying that cost, and we've got to respond in real time.
Right.
Larry?
Yeah, Councilman. I've lived in D.C. for a number of years. Don't live there anymore, but I feel, I have a lot of family and friends who live in D.C. So this really concerns me. But I want you, and I know you need to be very careful to walk this fine line. Does this feel like retribution in some respects? We talked about a few minutes ago the Black Lives Matter, street being painted over or removed, and the city, historically known as Chocolate City, right? Does this feel like it feels very personal from a policy standpoint? This is just not, $1.1 billion is a substantial amount of money, which you've articulated, and the mayor has yesterday. Does this feel like this goes beyond what's right for the city and more personal and in terms of like some of this grievance politics we've seen recently.
Yeah, Larry, make no mistake. DC is being bullied. And there's just no other way to put it. And at some point, we need folks to stand up, folks in DC and outside of DC to stand up and say, look, wrong is wrong. I'm a father of two little girls that are in our schools. I love their teachers. I love their schools. I don't want to see them go to school next week and some of their teachers aren't there. Anybody who has a loved one, if they're in the District of Columbia, you have a car accident or a national disaster like the plane crash that happened just weeks ago. We are there responding. These are the folks who won't be able to show up quickly enough. So DC is being bullied to our detriment, but also to the detriment of people who visit here. And because Congress has to approve our local laws, approve our local budget, we are always at the mercy of federal folks that we don't get to vote for to step up and protect us. And now, more than any time in decades, we need folks to step up.
Well, I certainly hope folks do. Bottom line is D.C. is getting screwed by these Republicans, and it makes no sense whatsoever. Councilman White, we certainly appreciate it. Thanks for. Matter of fact, hold up. While you're here, also just give us just your thoughts on, frankly, D.C. being forced by Republicans to dig up and destroy Black Lives Matter Plaza, which was erected, of course, 5 years ago. The 5th anniversary of the death of George Floyd is going to be May 25th this year. And again, the only reason this is happening is because Republicans threaten to withhold transportation dollars from the district.
Look, this is Black Lives Matter Plaza wasn't just a street in D.C. It was a national icon, a national monument. And to those of us who understand what those words mean, Black Lives Matter, why we have to say that affirmatively, we understand in a visceral way what that plaza meant and what it means to see it being torn up now. Now, what folks have to remember is that this kind of bullying, when you don't stop it, when you don't stand up to it, it comes for you. So even if you're outside of DC, you are not exempt. Today, it is Black Lives Matter Plaza, but they are coming to every state, every city. And we've got to make sure that we are standing firm, standing together and strategizing. Because if we're not strategizing and pulling together, we've already lost. But if we are doing that, then we have already won. We just got to get to work.
Indeed, indeed. Councilman White, we appreciate you joining us. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Roland.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. And right now we're accepting investors in our $17 million round to revolutionize the future of social media. Today, for just $399, you can own 60 shares of stock in Fanbase at $665 a share. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. While the big platforms have grown too massive and disconnected from their users, Fanbase is building a platform where creators and users truly come first. We've already raised $8.6 million from everyday investors who believe in this vision, and now you can join them. This is your chance to invest in a social media tech company with over 1 million users that is disrupting media by allowing anyone to reach all of their following and monetize their content from day one. The market is changing, big platforms are failing to serve their users, and Fanbase is stepping up to fill the gap. Don't wait until it's too late. Invest now. Invest for yourself and your future. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and own the future of social media.